No! No! No!
Hi there, and thanks for joining me for another episode of Mr. Ed Makes. And in this episode, I'm going to be doing some paint pours, but I wanted to really talk about the reality of doing this kind of art and what a newcomer to it might face. If you're new to it, you may have already seen some videos, you may have watched several and have been intrigued. You want to run out, you want to get everything that there is to do these and achieve these what seems like easy results. You're mixing some paint, you're pouring it on the canvas, you're letting it run, and ta-da, you're a master artist. And that's not at all the reality of doing a paint pour. So I want to talk a little bit about my experience in doing paint pours. This is something that I saw many years ago, and the artist was not letting go of any information about how it was made, and I was left to just wonder and imagine how this was created. And I tried lots of different things. Of course, I failed because the secret ingredient is silicone. Who would have known? But anyway, once I figured that out, I watched some videos on YouTube. I grabbed the stuff, I tried to do some, and my first one was absolutely beautiful. I was like, oh my God, this is so easy. And then as the minutes progressed, it just ran right off the canvas and was gone. Just like that. It was beautiful, and then it wasn't. So that's the number one reality of doing paint pours, is that you run a good chance of losing what you want to keep. And when you're just starting this, you're going to have this problem where you're going to lose everything. It's just going to run off, or it's not going to be even. It's going to run to one side and look all crappy, or it's not going to run at all. It's just going to be thick blob of paint in the center. So getting your paint the right flow consistency is one of the things that most artists who do these videos will tell you about. But what they don't tell you about is that mixing your paint is more of a kind of a feel, and it's not something that you can really instruct to specifically on a video. Now, people say you mix this much and that much together, and you stir this way and that way, but I promise you, every one of those artists that's mixing paint and creating what they want to make have done this again and again and again, and they've developed a feel for it. So while you may be able to get that information from watching a video, it really is something that you have to practice and work with and study and get to know. You may have a general idea or like some kind of general target to hit, but if you want to get the bullseye, you've really got to practice, and that's the same in archery as it is in mixing paint. So that's probably really good advice if you're starting, is to just understand that these videos are teaching to a certain base, and the artists who are telling you how to do this, they don't know if you know how to mix paint. They don't know if you understand how a dry surface and a wet medium will interact. Those are things that they just assume you know, or they're not aware that they know that you don't know. So the best advice I can give you is to just watch as many videos as you possibly can, because I promise you every single one is going to have at least one gold nugget of information. They're going to tell you something that nobody else did, or they're going to say it in a way that really clicks with you. So just watch as many videos as you can before you even go out there and do anything at all. So one of the biggest realities of doing this kind of art is the expense. To get the best results, the stuff that you see on YouTube, you have to spend the money. You need good paints that have vibrant colors, that are opaque and stay the same when they're dry. You need paint conditioner, which can be expensive. You can achieve the same results with lesser materials like PVA glue and that, but they're not going to be as stunning, and they just don't hold up as well as the professional materials. So like the Floetrol, using good flowing acrylic paints and using a sturdy canvas that's been well stretched is going to go far in how successful you're going to be. Another reality to doing paint pours that I don't think I've seen anybody talk about this really substantively, but it is not eco-friendly in any way, shape, or form. The trash generated by this project is tremendous. It's probably the most trash of any project I've ever done. I'm really conscious about reduce, reuse, recycle. In my video, you see I'm reusing cups. I've washed these out and have just cut them down so that they're the size I need and just reusing them that way. So I'm not adding to the waste stream anything more than what would have already been added. And even then, I try to find a use for the paint that's left over. And you can, if it's plastic enough, you can kind of peel it up and you can cut it and you can use it in jewelry and beads, different stuff like that. So you kind of want to keep in mind that there is going to be a lot of waste generated from this project, and you want to be mindful about what you can do to reduce as much of that as possible. I mean, a lot of artists are pretty eco-friendly, they're pretty eco-conscious, and I wouldn't want to see a lot of artists jump into this project and not be conscientious about how much trash it creates. You're using cups. Those cups cannot be reused unless you really put the time into cleaning them out, because they've got silicone oil and paint conditioner and everything else, and it's just a huge mess, and it's time consuming to clean up all of this material to reuse again. So you're going to toss it in the trash. I mean, that's pretty much guaranteed. Especially if you're selling these, you don't want to add an hour of cleanup time to the cost of each one of these. So that's something to keep in mind as a reality. If you're eco-friendly or eco-conscious, you're going to have a hard time with this. So I talked a little bit about losing what you want to keep. That's the reality of doing these paint pours. The way that it starts out, when it's first happening, that's going to be like the best. You're going to love it the most. And then as it evolves, it's kind of a living thing. It has a will of its own. It wants to do its own thing. The best you can do is just kind of shepherd it into the composition, the general composition you're going for. But by and large, it's really hard to predict the results exactly. Now, through practice, you can learn what will trend, what things generally happen regularly, like how do cells form, how does the webbing form, how do you get certain colors to run up against one another while other colors are ballooning out and forming cells. These are all things that you can learn from watching the videos and then try to replicate what these artists are doing. But again, it's going to take practice. You're not necessarily going to get the results you're after right at the very beginning. And a couple artists have talked about how you move the weight around. So there is a lot of science that goes into understanding what's going on, and that's going to improve your results too. If you understand chemistry, if you understand physics, if you understand color theory, all of those things are going to help you. And those are things that you're not necessarily going to get from watching the videos. That's something that you're going to get from either prior experience, doing other things that you're going to bring to bear in this project, or just from practice. On this paint pour right here, the beginning results were some of the most stellar, and I really loved it. But my paint didn't, I say it has legs. It's kind of a wine term, a way that the paint wants to move or not, how fast it wants to move. And I was afraid that my paint was going to run completely off the canvas, so it was a little bit thicker than maybe I wanted it to be. But it turns out that if you're just patient, it will go. It will eventually move. You just have to be patient, let it flow. You know, if you want it to work fast, it's going to run off. So you really have to work in the time that the paint allows you to work in, or you're going to lose your results. And that's probably just a function of learning how the material behaves over time and practice. So if I had some suggestions to give, I would say start small, start cheap, and just work very basically, get an idea, get a feel, and you're not going to be out a lot when you ultimately fail, because you will have a lot of failures. Again, have a staging area, have everything ready to go so that you're not fighting with anything, you're not running into anything unexpected, like your hands are covered with paint and you can't find a towel or a paper towel anywhere. That would be awful. So think in advance and try to set yourself up for success. And again, just be patient, be thoughtful. really think about what processes are going on, and that's going to help you at least experiment and learn more and ask the right questions. And I guess if you can get through all of that, you have a good chance of making a success out of this. Now, I will say at the very end here that if you're selling these, you may face an uphill challenge, because a lot of people just don't get it. They're like, oh, it's paint poured on a canvas, congratulations. They're not going to understand the texture, the gradients, the colors. Though that type of artistry appeals to a certain band of the population, so not everybody's going to get it. So you're not going to have a huge market, even though you think it's the most beautiful thing on earth. Another thing before I go here, if you like this video, be sure to give me a thumbs up. Be sure to give me a bell, give me a subscribe, and give me a comment, and I'd really appreciate that. And of course, as always, until next time, take care.